Hey, maybe we should call this the New Yankee Boatyard. Looks pretty salty, doesn't it? Now, for the last week, I've been putting the finishing touches on this sailing dinghy known as the Clancy. I installed the deck trim, and then covered everything with 3 coats of epoxy. I varnished the wood that I wanted to show and painted the underside. I've even installed some of the running hardware. I formed a tiller and a rudder assembly, and it's just about ready to take it for a sail. I can't wait. Now, if you'd like to build a Clancy, a measure drawing is available with a materials list, and you'll hear more about that before this program ends. Now, in a minute, I'm going to show you how to complete this hull, which I built last time, right here in the New Yankee Workshop.
The New Yankee Workshop features the craftsmanship of Norm Abram.
Since the last time you saw this hull, I completed all the fairing, which is to say I sanded, smoothed, and tapered all the fiberglass joints, both inside the hull and outside. Then I applied 3 coats of epoxy to everything, and this waterproofs the wood. And it's important to do it now because once the deck panels go on, it would be difficult to reach into the bulkhead compartments and apply the epoxy. I just completed removing any lumps off of the horizontal surfaces that the deck is going to sit on so that they'll fit nice and tight. The next thing I want to do is install this piece of wood, which is a solid piece of mahogany that I milled on my table saw. Now, it's known as a guard or a gunnel, and it sits at the top edge of each side. I've also roughed up the epoxy right at the edge because I'm going to attach the gunnel with glue and screws. I've left these guard pieces long. I'll trim them later. I'm using 3/4 inch bronze screws to attach the guard every 4 inches. And instead of measuring, I just made a little guide stick. I've extended a center line up over the top of the guard. Now, using a dovetail saw, I'll trim it off. I've attached the other guardrail with some glue and screws, except for the last couple feet, because I have to fit this piece against the one I already cut. I've made a mark, and that should leave it a little bit long. Okay, now that's still long. I'm going to clamp it and make another cut. Okay, now that's pretty good, but it's open at the top a little bit. So now if I run the saw right down the joint, it should be perfect. That took care of it. The next piece to install is this solid piece of mahogany that I beveled on each side of the table saw, and that conforms to the angles of the sides of the boat. And this is known as the cutwater. I'll install it using some marine adhesive and screws.
This holiday season, make it a season to celebrate with HGTV's All in Good Taste. Get great recipes for unique holiday fare. HGTV is serving up a great holiday with All in Good Taste, season to celebrate. Saturday at 5 Eastern on HGTV.
Come on, Woody, I got work to do. Come on, buddy, get up.
It's a cat, Woody. It's a cat.
Comfort Therm insulation from John's Manville is wrapped in plastic.
The mailman. Go get the mailman.
So you don't have to worry about itching.
I know what'll get you down.
Which means it's easy to install.
What?
If you ever get to that point, Comfort Therm from John's Manville. You don't have to worry about itching. Available at home improvement centers.
Here's HGTV's Daily Almanac. This is Thursday, December 10th. You can easily dispose of your holiday tree by planning ahead. Get a cheap plastic drop cloth and cut a hole in the middle of it. When you set up your tree, put the trunk through the hole and then in the tree stand. Hide the drop cloth under your tree skirt. When the holidays are over, lift the drop cloth up and over the top of the tree, catching all those falling needles.
Now for the deck panels. 1/4 inch marine plywood, cut according to the plan and covered with 3 coats of epoxy. That's why they're so shiny. Now, they're meant to be oversized, and the first thing I want to do is make a dry fit. And I'm going to have to make a little cutout for this mass tube. Now, I've sanded the epoxy because it's almost impossible to get a pencil mark to show up. Now, if this cutout does not fit perfectly, we don't have to worry because it's going to be covered by a deck trim piece. Okay, now what I want to do is set it in place and make sure that it overhangs all sides by just a little bit, and then attach it with some screws. Now these screws are just temporary, and later they'll be covered with deck trim. Now back here, the deck panel has to be trimmed along the center line of the boat. And the same thing up front. Now this line will define the outer edge of the guard. Now a word about power tool safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses. Now this line, which shows the exact edge of the guardrail, I want to stay about 1/8 of an inch to the outside when I make the cut, for final trimming later. Now that completes the trimming of the panel for the other side. Now this is a polyurethane marine adhesive sealant, and that'll help to secure the deck panels and also seal off the bulkhead areas. Well, now I'm ready to permanently set the panel. And the first screws that I'll put in will be the ones that I used earlier, and that will assure that the panel is in exactly the right position. Well, now, once again, I'm using my guide stick to space the screws, except this time it's 6 inches on center. Now, the screws are more 3/4 by 6 bronze. Now, to trim off any excess plywood, I'm simply using my laminate trimmer. It's just like trimming high-pressure laminate countertops. Now, I didn't make a mistake. That hole is so I can stick the laminate trimmer down where the dagger board cutout needs to be. Now, with my jigsaw, I'm going to round off the point of the bow and then sand it smooth. Now, this piece of plywood is the deck trim, and the hole is for the mast tube. Now, the deck trim is attached with epoxy, which is a 2-part system. This is the resin, and to that I add the right amount of hardener and mix it up. And then I thicken it with a little bit of filler. Now we'll just set it in place and fasten it with some screws, and they'll hold it while the epoxy sets up. This is known as a plug cutter, and set up in my drill press, I'm able to cut some 3/8-inch diameter plugs from solid mahogany that I'll use to fill the counterbores on those deck screws. Now, before I go home tonight, I really want to get all these plugs installed. So I've just set a little bit of epoxy in each counterbore, and I'll just press the plug in place. Tomorrow, I'll be able to sand them off. Well, overnight, the epoxy has done its job. It's set up, and the plugs are firmly set in place. Now I'm using my block plane to remove as much material as I can. Then I'll sand them flush, round over all the edges of the deck, and apply another coat of epoxy. Well, after I completed the sanding on the deck, I vacuumed it off and took a tack rag and cleaned off any remaining dust. Now, I've moved the boat outside because I want to continue working in the workshop, and while this epoxy coating dries, I don't want any dust to get on it. As long as no leaves or bugs fall on it, we'll be all set. Now, all the epoxy coats that I put on the boat were done the same way. I used this foam roller, which gives me a nice thin coat. The epoxy is a little different than the one we used for bonding. It has a different hardener, which extends the life of the epoxy to about 35 minutes. Now, with the epoxy all rolled on, before it starts to get too tacky, I'm going to take a 4-inch throwaway foam brush. I'm not going to try to move the material. I'm just going to smooth it out. Just lightly put some pressure on the brush and just keep going one section at a time with a slight overlap.
Hi, and welcome to Target Talk. Cindy Cameron here with tool expert Mike Elliott, talking about the snake driver. Mike, tell us about this amazing tool.
Well, Cindy, the snake driver is a terrific ratcheting screwdriver and socket set all in one. But the big news is this flexible steel shaft that bends to any angle without losing its strength. It's an incredible tool from Target for only $19.99.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hey, Mike, do you think my husband would like the snake driver?
Sure he would. No toolbox would be complete without one.
Welcome to Target Talk. Go ahead.
Does the snake driver work around corners?
Oh, yeah. Gets right into those hard-to-reach places like car engines, bookcases, behind appliances. Works with any cordless screwdriver, and it even has a magnetic tip in case you drop a screw. And all 26 pieces come in a snap-fit case.
Mike, it seems like the snake driver would make a great gift.
It sure would.
To get your snake driver, just stay tuned.
To order the snake driver from Target, call 1-800-946-6688. Call and order right now.
There are 7 million kids in this country who wet the bed, often because their bladders haven't grown as quickly as the rest of their bodies. One product can help. That protects, yet looks and feels like real underwear. It's helping a lot of kids feel better about themselves. Good nights mean good mornings.
Save time from pulling weeds. Get Easy Gardener's Weed Block Landscape Fabric. Weed Block stops weeds for years, and it's easy to use. Simply unroll Weed Block over the planting area, working it around plants. Then cover with mulch. Patented microfunnels molded into the fabric allow air and water through while blocking light and weeds. Weed Block is strong and durable, lasting up to 4 times longer than other brands. For the choice that makes the difference anywhere you want to control weeds, use Weed Block. Stops weeds for years.
Man, that chili was hot.
You got heartburn too?
Yeah. Want to try these new Pepsi AC chewables?
It says you gotta take it with water. What's the water for? Oh, Tums, you don't need water.
Just because new Pepsid is chewable doesn't mean it works like Tums. Tums calcium knocks out heartburn fast. Pepsid Chewable's famotidine has to go through your bloodstream, so it takes 40 minutes just to start working.
You want to go back for water?
Forget the water. Pass the Tums.
I want to keep my smile for life, don't you? But everybody has plaque, the leading cause of gum disease. 3 out of 4 people will have some form of gum disease in their lifetime. You can do something about it. Interplaque by Conair is clinically proven to remove nearly all plaque, even below the gum line. Its unique cleaning action can actually reverse gum disease. And now the totally cordless Odyssey, clutter-free. Recharge in any outlet in as little as 10 minutes. ADA accepted Interplaque by Conair. Keep your smile for life.
While the epoxy dries, let's start working on the rudder tiller assembly. The rudder is made up of 3 pieces of plywood, like a sandwich. There are 2 outer pieces with a spacer, which allows for this aluminum plate to move. Over here, I have 2 pieces of 1/4-inch plywood that I've epoxied both sides. I've sanded what will become the inner part so that I'll be able to glue the sandwich together with more epoxy later. I'm going to cut the pieces as one, and to hold them in place, I'm just going to tack them together with a little bit of hot glue. Here's the spacer that I also cut at the bandsaw. I'm just going to tack it on for the ride through the drum sander. That way all the edges will be uniform. Well, now it's time to assemble it. The pieces have been cleaned with acetone. Let's bond them together. Okay, now to hold them, we'll screw them together. Now, that may look like a lot of screws, but I don't want to lose my steering in the middle of an important race. Now, the screws that I'm using are a 1/2 inch by 6 stainless steel screw, and I'm going to install them from both sides of the rudder. And once again, some of these 3/8 inch plugs. The lower part of the rudder is made from a piece of 1/8 inch thick marine aluminum. Now let's make the tiller. It needs to have a notch in one end to fit over the rudder. And the very end of that notch is cut at an angle so that when you swing the tiller, it won't bind up. I found that the best way to cut that notch was to use my table saw with the blade set at the maximum height to give me the angle cut. And I've set the fence to start along this line. Then I'll keep moving the fence until I get over to the line on the other side. Now, if you look at the tiller, it's tapered fine along the top edge or the bottom edge, but along the side, it's still a little thick down where the handle is. So I want to taper that. One way to do that is to use the joiner. Now, how a joiner works is that the outfeed table is at the same height as the very highest point of the cutter knife spinning. To joint wood, you lower the infeed table. If this table is down a 1/16 of an inch, as you bring the wood in, it'll remove a 1/16 of an inch. Then the outfeed table will support the piece as it goes through. If I want to make a taper, if I place the wood on the outfeed table first, the cutter knife cannot even hit it. But as I push it down, it'll gradually taper the piece until about a 1/16 of an inch is removed at this end. If I keep doing that, I get a perfect taper. With a round-over bit, I can dress up all the edges. Now, as you can see on the top side, I switched to a bead bit, which gives me a little ledge right along the edge. So now that the epoxy has set up on the rudder, the plugs can be sanded flush. That hole is for the bolt that'll hold the metal part of the rudder, and this one is going to be for the bolt that holds the tiller. Okay, that takes care of the hole in the rudder plate. Okay, now that's a 1/4 inch hole through the tiller to attach it to the rudder. Of course, before I do the final assembly, I'll want to put some additional coats of epoxy on the wooden parts. Now let's build the dagger board. The dagger board is a board, or in this case, a piece of plywood that's narrow and very long. It slips down through the dagger board slot, and it has a handle at the top so it can't fall through. And what the dagger board does is keeps the boat from slipping sideways when it's under sail. Now, using my belt sander, I want to make a profile on the lower portion of the dagger board, sort of like an airplane wing, so it'll go through the water easily. Now, using my table saw, I've made a groove in the handle piece so that it'll slip over the plywood. Okay, a little more epoxy to secure the handle. I'll fasten it with some screws and plug the holes. Now, once this sets up, we'll seal the entire dagger board with at least 3 coats of epoxy.
Order a home video of the project you've just seen Norm build, complete with a measure drawing and materials list. Call toll-free 1-800-892-0110. The price is $24.95 plus shipping and handling. Get the measure drawing alone for only $10. The number again is 1-800-892-0110.
This is your place. This is where you grow beauty and peace. Keep your haven free of weeds and herbicides. Lay down Typar landscape fabric and cover with mulch or stone. Typar blocks weeds, allows moisture, air, and nutrients in the soil for healthy plants and shrubs. Keep your peace of mind and your happiness undisturbed. Typar landscape fabric, available at Lowe's and other fine home improvement and garden centers nationwide.
The new light compact umbrella from Totes. It's so easy to carry, you'll always have it with you.
The new thin umbrella from Totes. It's so easy to carry, you'll always have it with you. It's amazing what some people will do to save a little money.
Found it! What a piece of work.
Yet with one call to Geico, you could save 15% or more on car insurance. And considering the alternatives, making a phone call is pretty simple.
I got it! Amateur.
Geico Direct. A 15-minute call could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
For the sore red nose,
Kleenex presents the better lotion tissue. Cold Care with lotion. It's better than the other lotion tissue. Only Cold Care has the 3-layer system, plus a moisturizing lotion made with vitamin E and aloe. Tests prove Cold Care is more soothing than the other lotion tissue. It's the better lotion tissue, so Kleenex Cold Care is all your nose needs.
Some say 5 minutes can change your entire day. Inner bath showers. Imagine what 10 minutes can do.
Now, after the epoxy dried on the deck, we brought the boat in from outside and set it up here in the paint room. This epoxy needs to be covered with either paint or varnish to protect it from UV. So I'm preparing the surface by sanding it with some 220 wet dry sandpaper. Now, this is an important step to remove any of the sanding residue. Otherwise, the paint just isn't going to stick. Well, what do you think of this for a color? Around here, we call it New Yankee Red. It's a marine enamel, and I'll put a couple coats on the bottom. And after they dry, I'll varnish the sides and the deck. We'll put the hardware on, and then we'll take it out for a sail. The sail, the mast and boom, and all the marine hardware we purchased as a kit from a marine supply house in the state of Washington. That source is listed in the measured drawing. There's not a lot of hardware. On the rear deck, there are 2 fair leads and a clam cleat. For the transom, there are gudgeons and pintles to attach the rudder. Inside the cockpit, there are 3 deck plates which will seal off the bulkheads. And on the forward deck, there's a fair lead and another clam cleat. The kit also includes some half-round brass that I run down each guardrail and the center of the keel. Well, I couldn't launch the New Yankee fleet without the help of my good friend Steve Thomas, a salty dog if there ever was one. Hey, Steve, you want to check out my rigging?
Sure. Well, you got your dagger board in, and traveler here with a stop knot on it. That's good. You've got your main sheet rig, out haul, bang, down haul. Most importantly, life vest. I think you're ready, Norm. Shall we see if they float?
What do you mean, see if it floats? Of course it's going to float.
Just swing the bow around to you. Yeah, go ahead. Grab the painter, Norm. Don't want to lose it at this point.
Okay. All right.
Well, so far so good, Norm. Shall we look in the bulkhead, see if we got any leaks?
Steve, it's going to float, believe me. Okay.
Okay. Right. Once you hook on the main sheet to the traveler.
Okay.
That's hard to do. Well, I guess you can't put it off any longer, Norm.
All right.
Go. Up in there. Hey, get nice and comfortable. Ready?
Great.
Bon voyage.
Okay. Oh, bon voyage. Now let me think. Tiller, sail, jibe. What does that mean?